The next book I'm going to talk about is My Sister the Serial Killer. I listened to this on audiobook, and this was shortlisted, or at least longlisted, for the Women's Prize for Fiction last year. I really did enjoy this book in terms of the listening experience. I felt like if I read it, I wouldn't have enjoyed it so much, but this was a book set in Nigeria by a Nigerian diaspora author, not too sure, but Fitz McGulls. And this is about our main character, sort of Ayola, and her sister. Can't even remember the sister's name now. I know the sister is the narrator, but maybe that's the way it's meant to be, because her sister, it's everything to do with her sister. And her sister just can't seem to stop killing the men that she's dating. She gets bored with them, kills them, and her sister has to help her cover it up. So the story isn't really about the fact that her sister is, you know, looking for her next victim or anything. It's talking about, like, unraveling their lives and why her sister does what she does, and sort of, I guess, the next chapter, like, of just their daily life, and, you know, how that is living with her sister, who just can't seem to take responsibility for any of the things that she does, and basically acts like a child until she wants to kill someone. So it was just a really nice book. I really enjoyed the experience because it was narrated by a Nigerian person, so she was able to do the Nigerian accents, and I think it just made everything a lot funnier. Like, the book just became epically funny, and I thoroughly enjoyed it for that perspective. The next book I'm going to speak about is Taking Up Space by Chelsea and Ore. I thoroughly enjoyed this book. I never actually really ended up speaking about this book on my channel, but it was a proof from NetGalley, and it's basically these two girls. They went to Cambridge, I think. I always get them confused. Like, and I had a friend that went to one of those unis, and I still can't remember which one she went to. But anyway, talking about their experiences, but the book is essentially a help guide for other people who want to go to those schools. So this first chapter is sort of talking about, you know, what their backgrounds were like, what schools they went to and stuff like that. They don't really delve into the process of them applying, but I'm sure, like, if you wanted to read that, you could ask them or whatever, because I know they do have another book coming out. So they're talking about that sort of process. They're talking about what it was like being at these unis in terms of, like, fitting in with people, the societies that were there, like, just, like, you know, in terms of, like, if they want to go out and have, like, a good club night, like, they'd have to go to places that played music that they didn't even like, because there was, like, I don't know, 10 black kids in all of the uni. That's an exaggeration. There's obviously more than that, but not that many more. They're talking about the curriculum. So there's this, like, hashtag called Academia So White, just how, like, limited the curriculum was. They talk about dating, so in terms of the fact that, you know, there are other black men there at this uni, but they're usually not even interested in black girls anyway. So they talk about so many things and cover so many things that it's so worth reading just to see what their experience was like. Just things that I don't think you would understand if you weren't black, like if you weren't a person of colour, that you can't understand how so many of the things are so limiting to them. It just alienates them from the overall experience of being able to study and sort of flourish well, and sort of feel like, yes, I'm seeing other people that look like me being reflected back at me. Because again, they do talk about lectures as well. There was a really interesting stat that I've now forgotten, but just the stat about the amount of black lecturers there are in the UK overall is bloody shocking. The wonderful thing that I find with this book is it's not above questioning itself. It's not above saying, you know, we are saying that we don't see ourselves reflected in the teaching, but also maybe that's, you know, an issue with the fact that a lot of us don't go into that field. But then obviously questioning the fact that to go into that field, like, is very low paid, being around colleagues that, you know, probably don't say the same things as you. It's not the fact that you want everyone around you to be exactly the same, but it's that experience of, like, wanting to fit in, and obviously just not feeling, like, really alienated from your colleagues and any experiences that they might have had having to get to this journey. So it is not about questioning itself and, you know, sort of talking about why things may be the way they are, but they are really, like, working hard along with other people that are in these institutions to sort of dismantle those things and make it a varied place, so that loads of other people are able to go there, that people of colour are able to go there, but also people that would have usually gone there as well. So I found it a thoroughly, like, interesting read, and I just really appreciated that the effort that they put into putting this together, because they put this together whilst they were still at uni in their final years. I can't imagine that, you know, being at final year of uni is easy, because I know it's not, but also being at such an institution, I imagine the workload is twice the amount. So definitely a really, like, really good book for the fact that they were working on this whilst they were still studying. The next book I'm going to talk about is The Fisherman by Chigozie Abioma. Again, not going to talk about this book too much because I mentioned it, like, when I reviewed it and then, like, in a favourites video, but honestly I really love this book. This is a book set in Nigeria. Abioma himself is also Nigerian, and it is about 4 boys. It's in a small town in western Nigeria. 4 young brothers, the youngest is 9, the oldest 15, use their strict father's absence from home to go fishing at a forbidden local river. They encounter a dangerous local madman who predicts that the oldest brother will be killed by another. This prophecy breaks their strong bond and unleashes a tragic chain of events of almost mythic proportions. This book just gets me in my feels. Like, I can't imagine. Like, essentially what happens, like you said, the youngest is 9, the oldest is 15. The oldest boy is told that one of his brothers is going to kill him. Yes, it does say that at the back. I was just thinking, am I spoiling that? His brother is going to kill him. And yeah, not the youngest one, he doesn't know which one it is. And I can't imagine, like, being in a family and knowing that the downfall of you will be one of your brothers. And it reminds me of another book called The Immortalist. That, you know, The Immortalist was basically a book where these siblings went to a fortune teller, and the fortune teller told them when they were going to die. And it's like, once you know you're going to die, like, how do you live your life? Like, I know we're all going to die, but you're given a specific date. In this one, he isn't giving a specific date, but it's just the unfolding. You can't imagine being 15 and that is sort of revealed to you. And it's about the way the brother ends up, the oldest brother who has received this prediction, ends up treating his other brothers, how it sort of breaks their family apart. Oh my God. You can't even begin. Like, you just want to reach out and hold every single character and be like, please stop. Because they're so young, they don't know what's going on, and like, it's heartbreaking. This book is really, really heartbreaking. It had me in all my feels. It felt so real, and you could really see how each character had come to the conclusion they had come to. It just felt so real, so tragic, and I thoroughly was just like, I really love this book. I really love it, even though it makes me really sad. Like, thinking about it now, it makes me really, really sad. Another book that makes me sad, Purple Hibiscus by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. Of course, Chimamanda is Nigerian, and she writes books like set in Nigeria or sometimes America, because I don't know if she lives there now, but I know, like, she frequents both places. And again, this book is just, so sad. It's about 15-year-old Kambili, and it says, the limits of 15-year-old Kambili's world are defined by the high walls and frangipani trees of her family estate and the dictates of her fanatically religious father. And yes, it's her religious father that basically dictates their whole lives. It dictates the lives of her older brother and also her mum. And basically they have to endure, like, the mum has to endure domestic violence, like, the children are, you know, enduring abuse at home. And Kamili's just really shy and, like, I feel like, as well, I said this last time, she's so young for her age. Like, we hear this story from her, but I feel like she is a character that I thought was like 9 years old. I couldn't believe, like, she was 15. Obviously, I'd read the back and I was reading the book, but I was just like, she doesn't sound like a 15-year-old. Again, this book is just really tragic. There's no way of me, like, talking about what's in it without ruining it, but it is about her and her brother being able to, like, sort of go to her aunties and see how her cousins live. And, you know, that I remember she talking about the fact that, you know, laughter, that they're allowed to laugh. Like, you know, like, they're so stifled in their house that the dad is just like, it is about religion and school and there is nothing else. Like, there's no happiness in their lives. There is nothing. Their home is so frightening. So it's also about that sort of exploration of that sort of freedom that she has, but then an incident does occur in the end that I guess brings their family closer together and allows them to sort of move on with their lives. But my God, like, I just think about this book and The Fisherman, and I just think, what 2 tragically sad books, but what 2 wonderful examples of the kind of writing that I don't even feel like you need to have lived in Nigeria or lived in Africa to be able to, like, feel something from it. I don't know, I feel like they're just great examples of literature that is coming from African authors. Another book I'm going to talk about is Red Dust Road by Jackie Kay. This is an autobiography, and I ended up buddy reading this last year with Pauline from Dancing Lawn. Again, I spoke about this when I reviewed the video. So Jackie was adopted. She was adopted in Scotland by 2 Scottish parents, and she grew up in Glasgow in, like, Bishopbriggs, which is actually where I work. And I think she's maybe about 40 or something in her life, and she decides to sort of find her parents. So her mum is Scottish and her dad is Nigerian, so she manages to, like, sort of track them down. And it's just about that journey of meeting her parents and what it's like. The parts, like, where she meets her dad because he's in Nigeria, are particularly funny because she travels to Nigeria. And I think maybe because it's a bit different for her because she lived in Scotland, it's a lot easier to have been very rooted in Scotland and know about Scotland. whereas I think Nigeria, because she'd never been there, and obviously she was mixed race, so if you're in a country where you look different to other people, people single out that sort of difference in you. So Nigeria was a particular draw to her, and it's really cool because in this book she talks about like staying at Chimanda's house, like Chimanda Ngozi Adichie, and I'm just like, woman living the life. You know, and Chimanda like helps her out when she's Nigerian on this journey of finding her dad and sort of navigating through that sort of the feelings that come with that, and like her siblings and things like that. A lot happens in this book. I think it's incredibly sad. It's sad in terms of the racism that she faced in Scotland when she went down to London. I'm trying to remember if there was stuff said to her when she was in Nigeria. I can't remember that now, but it's just so sad the things that she faced in terms of just the colour of her skin, and especially when she talks about the fact that, you know, she faced a lot of this when she was in uni in Stirling, and I just feel like it's just so weird to me because that's the uni that I go to, so I'm just like, like how? And this wasn't that long ago. I mean, I don't know why it surprises me, but I shouldn't be surprised, but it's just shocking to read. I don't think I'm surprised, it's just shocking to read about the actual personal effects it has on someone. But yeah, it says here, Jackie Kate is one of Scotland's most celebrated voices, which I bloody love, like, because yeah, people really do love her in Scotland. Not gonna lie, I hadn't heard of her before. The only reason I actually ended up hearing of her was because Pauline spoke about her to me, and then we decided to buddy read this. So yeah, it says, growing up in Glasgow, her childhood was one filled with love, and yet later pregnant with her own son, she decided she needed to find her birth parents. So Kay set out on a remarkable journey from Scotland to Nigeria, a journey that forced her to confront what it takes to find yourself, and what it is that makes us who we are. So yeah, both sides thoroughly interesting, her finding her mum and her mum's family, and her finding her dad and her dad's family. And I just think, in this book, it's very interesting in terms of what she ends up finding, and I just feel like the families of her mum and dad were the most like welcoming, most supportive. I don't know, it breaks my heart to know that so many years they went without, and you know, they welcomed her with open arms, and it was just beautiful. I feel like I'm about to tear up, but it was just so lovely, and it just, yeah. And I think it really just showed about the ideas and thoughts that we, you know, had at that time, and you know, the two people that made this decision to sort of like give her up, and the implications it also had on her family. It was a very thoroughly well done book, and the writing was really good, really easy to get through, and I really need to actually read more from Jackie Kay. I have so many pages like folded down because there were so many things that affected me that I was just like, this book is beautiful. Another book I'm going to speak about is Dark Days by James Baldwin. I have it somewhere behind me, I can't find it, I don't know where it is. And this is like an essay collection, so it just has 3 essay collections. It's the Penguin £1 books that they put together of like essays from really super popular people, writers, not people. And yes, this was a really good collection. It was talking about African Americans, but these essays were essays that were published, I think maybe like in the 90s or something like that. It was a good essay collection, and I really thoroughly enjoyed it. I actually need to find it because I remember writing stuff in the back of it. So essentially what he does in this essay collection, which contains Dark Days, White Man Hear My Plea or something like that, and there's something else, is he talks about sort of the effects that racism has had on African Americans, and just sort of what he hopes for the future, and just talking about, you know, you guys see so much difference when you look at us, but we're all the same, like we're all human, like we all deserve like the respect based on our character. We don't deserve to be disrespected because of the colour of our skin. And it's just a really poignant piece. I just remember reading it and thinking it's such a shame that I don't feel like so much has changed, which, you know, that's perspective, and that's, you know, your own thoughts on it, but also I don't live in America, so how would I know? But I just remember reading it, it was so heartbreaking. It's just really sad to hear about the treatment and the sort of like pleas and letters you have to write just to be treated as a human being. But yeah, that was a book I thoroughly enjoyed. The other book I'm going to talk about is Girl, Woman, Other by Bernardine. It's the joint Man Booker winner. I recently spoke about this, so I'm really just not going to talk about it that much. But it is about 11 women, 1 non-binary, and it's set in London, and each chapter focuses on one of these women and how their lives sort of intertwine with each other, but it just covers so many things. Like, it's talking about sexuality, it's talking about race, it's talking about, you know, transgender, non-binary, sexual abuse, just fitting in, being modern day, like so many things. There were characters that I was just like, I'm really not interested in your story, but there were other characters that I was like, you need to tell me more. You know, it even talks about like adoption, characters being adopted and things like that. I thoroughly enjoyed this book. I felt like it was so well researched. I said this when I did my review, but it reminds me of Homegoing because each character is built out so well. It spans like decades because it's talking about characters that are like 17 to characters that are like nearly 100. So, you know, you're hearing the lives of these characters, and sometimes when you're just listening to one character, you're going back into like some of their family, and then you're finding out like a character like who is their grandmother is also going to be the person in the next chapter. It was a thoroughly enjoyable book, and I can completely understand why this was like the winner. Obviously I haven't read The Testament, so I don't know if it deserved to also win, but you know, judging from the controversy around it and, you know, Margaret Atwood herself, I feel like she's thinking you should have just let her have it. But anyway, really enjoyed that book. I also keep forgetting to say how they relating to my goal, but I'm hoping that, you know, you're actually understanding that in some way the author or the content is obviously the relation to the African literature goal. Another book I want to speak about is Learning Rhythm by Kwabena Foley. This is a poetry collection. I'm going to read you what it says the book is about on Goodreads because there is nothing on the blurb, but it says, working with difference, this is what rhythm is. However, creating synergy can be messy, especially when the disconnect is within yourself just as much as you see it in others. Here, two beings will attempt to be together despite the complexities pulling them apart. This is a tale about how such things learn to dance instead of fall. Honestly, I just thought it was an okay poetry collection. I liked it. I didn't really find that there was much that I really liked, but it was interesting. I don't have anything more to say about that because I think the context of it is actually mainly more like personal rather than in any way like about Africa. I feel like it's even more like American centered, but I do know the author is also American. But yeah, what I think there's a lot of in here is he talks about black men and the sort of feelings that black men have. So there is that sort of theme running through it. My camera cut out, so I can't remember what I was saying, but I think I was saying that it was themed around black men as well. But there's that for a theme. I think it was a nice sort of delve into poetry, but I think there's probably more that I can do to sort of refine this goal in terms of poetry anyway, and get to read the kind of poetry that maybe I want, that I'm looking for. But this wasn't a bad collection. It was just very much, I don't know, it was okay. It was very, I felt like 21st century, very millennial, rather than like what I was looking for. The final book I'm going to speak about is That Reminds Me by Derek Owosu. Again, I just recently reviewed this, like, legit, I think this will be my last video, so I'm not going to talk too much about it, but this is basically a prose. It's very short. Again, I still haven't found out how many pages it has in it, but it's like sort of a coming of age novel of our character Kay, who is moving through the world, and we're just hearing about the different sort of difficulties he's sort of forced to deal with in his life. So the beginning starts off with him in a foster home, and then he's sort of taken out of the foster home by his parents, and then he moves to London. I'm not sure if he always was in London in the beginning. And then it's just talking about the mental health difficulty that he's faced, the sort of, I guess, troubled life that he's leading because of where he's living, and just, yeah, because he's battling with mental health. And there's loads of talk about the sort of outcome of the diagnosis itself. And it's a very interesting book. It's a book I'm really glad that I read, but like I said in my review, I was very like confused by it a lot of the time. It was very fast paced. It was really hard to tell what was happening sometimes, but I felt like it all flowed together to make a really wonderful ending that I really understood, that was really poignant, really heartbreaking, but I think the kind of narratives that we need to sort of hear, especially coming from Black British people and just those experiences of mental health. But that is it for this video. So I hope that gave you an insight into sort of the books that, you know, I was trying to read in order to reach this goal. It was as sort of wide and varied as it could be, so that I could find, I guess, the areas that really interested me. Right now, I can't really pinpoint any areas that did interest me, but what I am going to do is tell you the sort of highlights, like what books were my highlights, basically. And my highlights are Between the Wild and Me, Don't Touch My Hair, My Sister the Serial Killer, even though it was a book I found, like, in its actual overall form was just a very, like, meh, okay book. Taking Up Space, The Fisherman, and Red Dust Road. By far books that just blew me away, and by far, like, if anyone asked me to sort of recommend books under the sort of African literature umbrella, they are the books that I would probably pick and go to first. I just thought they were really good. That is it for this video. Please let me know in the comments down below if you have any sort of thoughts about what I've said, or just if you want to chat about any of these books or if you've read them. And I will catch you in my next video. Bye!